Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Online Bible Institute Network podcast. I am Douglas S. Laws, and next to me, virtually, is my father, Pastor Steve Laws, founder of the Online Bible Institute and developing other institutes all over the world, which is really cool. Glad you're here, Dad. Thank you for joining me in our pre-planned meeting here.
Yeah. Happy to be with you. I was just watching, I was looking at the backgrounds and I'm thinking I should get that same background. It would look like we were in one long.
Yeah, that would really be like futuristic looking,
Is
these
that a is that
backgrounds I
one
find on the internet.
that's included in the actual setup in Zoom, or did you have to?
No, so I'm special and I'm a bit of a nerd. So, with my computer, I have a thing called a graphics card that lets me have this program called
I think
NVIDIA
you're talking to
Broadcast
me like a boomer now.
where where I can put in the image and it does it, on its own. So like Zoom probably could, uh, but this is using the graphics card versus the process. Anyway, nerd speak. We're not a tech institute, but
No,
we could probably set you up with it and we'll figure out
I'm just
one way or
thinking
another.
it might look cool, but
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah, because a lot of times I'll get distracted because your cat, well, our cat is in the
Yeah.
background there.
Yeah, she's pretty famous for coming in and out. Let's
Yep.
see. I could do fit backgrounds here. What could I do? What's this? Oh, this is funny. This
Well, how did you have that on your computer so quick
I
and
don't
easy?
I don't know.
That's me and several of my brothers-in-law. Kurt was the
Thank
Hulk
you.
back there. He was probably
That's
like 14 when we did that.
that's funny, isn't it?
Uh, yep.
Okay.
Oh
I
my
don't know how
goodness.
to get rid of it. There we go.
There. Yeah, you don't want
I,
to leave that up the whole
I could
time.
do that, but that
Uh,
always looks weird to me.
yeah, it makes your hair look funny.
Yeah, well, I know. So there
Uh,
we go. Is
yeah,
that
that
better?
that that's fine. Yeah, I'm still in the background in that shot too, but that's okay.
Yeah, there you
So,
go. All right.
anyway, we're
Yeah, that was enough of that. Sorry,
that's
everyone.
all right. Yeah, well, I think people like the lighthearted stuff as we segue into the meat of the podcast, which is where we go over our sermons at Keys Vineyard Church. And, we've done, several of the sermons over the last year or two. And it's just great because we got this idea because you'd go over with me when it was my turn to speak the notes and kind of, okay, here's the points and here's how. And so these coaching sessions were very valuable. And so we thought, hey, let's do that with everybody here because we're getting to pick your brain here a little bit. So we're in Kingdom Incarnate Part 4, and we're going through the Gospels. And this series is going to take us all the way through to Easter, basically, because
Yeah,
the themes were tabernacle, temple, cross, and resurrection. So it leads perfectly into Easter. And last
right.
week, I had the privilege of speaking, and we talked about the wedding in Cana and how it was Jesus' sign and how he came to give us new and abundant life and that the what the wine symbolized. That was good. I would encourage y'all to listen to that, not just because I did it, but because
But
you should.
it was you did well, and it was a good message.
Huh,
There's
and
some, it's intriguing to me that the thinking of how he uses, the stone pots and the sort of religious ritual, and then changes it into something new. And at the same time, he saved the best for last, which is
right,
really significant. How
right.
because we're people of hope waiting for Revelation 21. He saved the best for last, right? And then it's all woven together. And then he provided for that couple, not only fixing the shame moment, but
But
beyond
for
it. Right?
yeah, just setting them up for
Lavish.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
So it was a great message. We had a lot of fun. And the other idea behind in this series we're trying to get, as I've talked about, it's about seeing and knowing Jesus, knowing and seeing that this is sort of part of the Epiphany season as well, heading up into the Easter Lent season, and there's a lot of things going on, and we can't cover them all. We're going to focus primarily in John, um, we're going to look at John, the seven signs recorded in John. That's going to get us through that, and then we're going to pop over into Luke, and we're going to see sort of Luke's aspect of it all, and we'll reference Matthew and Mark, and
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fascinating, things happening in there, but. Yeah, we're really going to work from now. You started with the first of seven signs that John recorded, and he says there's a whole lot more. But he
Right.
sort of on purpose puts these seven in there, and there's a reason behind it. And seven is always when you see things happening seven times in the Bible.
Right. Seven is a key number. I,
Oh,
I
that's
was I was doing one of our courses, NT Wright, and it's interesting because later on in John chapter 2, we read about his scene at the temple. And it happens so early on in John, whereas in the other three gospels, it happens later on. So, it's just John's written a little bit differently than the other ones, and
yeah.
it was
Well,
just an
well,
interesting
John,
point to think of,
they
like,
they weren't worried about the chronology.
right.
They're
They were
putting
just
they're putting the story together in a way that ties it into the bigger story,
right.
and with their readers in mind, and what they would begin to see. There's so many patterns in the New Testament that it hurts your brain. I'm doing one
It,
of
it hurts your brain in a good way,
yeah, but I'm doing one of
like,
Dr. Mackey's courses now on Matthew, and the patterns that he pulls out of there, just like, oh my goodness. I mean, just in the first few chapters, it's like, wow.
yeah.
So, all that stuff is going on. It's very cool. And it's very cool to continue to learn. I brought that up because courses, especially when they're free, there's no reason you shouldn't take courses your
Yeah.
whole life.
Just do a
Um,
course a day as best as you can, and if you
and
miss, it's
I'm,
just hop
at
back
this
on. And,
at this point, I'm not trying to earn any degrees anymore or anything because what's the point? But
right.
I still want to learn and then, weigh it all in, and it's all, what we do is fascinating anyway. And
In ministry, we're all called to be theologians to a degree, and it's a great way to study about God.
yeah,
And it's amazing that there's courses like these available on a platform like this, and
yeah.
that we can do this. And then, we're getting to create our own too, which is also cool.
Yeah, we're doing that. I'm looking forward to more of that. And I'll get in the message. We did, I don't know if we mentioned it last time or not, but we just opened up a new branch in Kenya.
That's amazing.
And so Cameroon's been going for a year, and we'll get the administrator of Cameroon on board here. He shows up on the site a lot, but we'll get him in some of these podcasts.
Yeah,
He's a great guy.
he's coming up soon.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got
And then
plans.
a guy named Steven in Kenya is launching one over there, and we're working with him right now. And we use our platform. The the main thing has always been on onlinebibleinstitute.org, but we were able a couple of years ago to get bibleinstitute.net, just Bible Institute, and that's been that with the understanding that that would be the platform from which we launch the others
Other Bible
because
institutes.
now we can use them subdomains. I know it's geek speak, but like Cameroon is cameroon.bibleinstitute.net. And Kenya now is kenya.bibleinstitute.net. So it has a nice flow, and it's very helpful for attracting organic traffic on the search engines, which is all we've ever done. We've never advertised. We've never done anything other than be on the internet and try and do a good job.
I remember many nights you'd spend till like 2 a.m. just doing SEO stuff.
Well, I had to learn it.
Search
It
engine
doesn't.
optimization in your Bible Institute podcast. There's your term
Yeah,
for the day.
yeah. Well, I took years to learn how to because I somehow I knew it would be important. And
Yeah,
that was in the beginning. It was when things had no idea what they were going to look like. But I like this is going to be a thing,
right.
and I would rather know how to do it than have to find people constantly that know how to do it. And so let's just figure out how to do it. And then God has been faithful, and we got this little thing happening, and it's kind of fun. That students all over the world. We just picked up a student. This is good. I don't know if you listen or not, but he's in a refugee camp in Malawi, and he's a refugee from the Republic of Congo or something. And
Wow.
how, and he's telling people about Jesus in this refugee camp
Mm,
and wants to be able to, have more information. And I just think, man, that's what it's about, right?
yeah.
Because without this, I couldn't help that. We couldn't do anything. But
No. Yeah. I
here
mean,
we are. And, along with the ministry that we have all the time, we have these other things. And I think, man, that is just so cool. Um, we have a new student just the other week from Iran. I think, well, that's just cool.
yeah. We're reaching into Iran.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, that's amazing. So, God
yeah,
bless them for what they're doing
yeah,
and for pursuing studying the Bible, studying God's
yeah,
word and drawing closer to him. And,
yeah,
big prayers for them with what
yeah.
they've
In the
got.
midst of persecution, everything else, that
Yeah,
there's
I mean, trying to do it in the middle of a refugee camp is
yeah. Can
is
you
is
imagine?
admirable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
just
that one of the reasons I
so
know we're
courageous.
sidetracked here, but we try and keep those new institutes very simple
Right.
so that they work on phones.
Hmm.
And so they're very light. I mean, like I'm always looking at them and I like to make pretty websites, right? But at some point you have to go, but it takes so much resource for that pretty thing. Where if I don't do it like that and keep it simple, it's going to
Yeah.
load on a phone really quick.
Right.
And so a lot of times in these things, I do have a new theme I started working with. It seems really light and fast, so we're using that more now. But anyway, let's get back on track here, or
Yeah.
we'll just chat forever. So this
The-
week, this is a second sign uh, from the John, and this one is the healing of the royal official's son. So this is the second one, and we have to skip all the way to John 4 to get to it. Um, and these signs, because we sometimes call them miracles, but John called them signs. They're signposts. They're pointing to Jesus. I mean, that's what signposts do throughout the Bible. And we, in the last series that we did, we were looking at signposts all along, and now we still have them happening. And John really sort of sets up the theme of his gospel in John chapter 20. In verse 30 and 31, I've got it written down here. It says that Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written down, in particular these seven, so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And so there's a connection between belief, faith, and life. And that ultimately it's about making sure that your faith is in the right object, which would be Jesus. And so it's less about, and this people might get a little sideways. That's okay. Think about it. It's less about how much faith you have. It's much more about what your faith is in.
Mm,
So a mustard seed of faith in the right thing is way better than a bunch of faith that's not where it needs to be. So, um, so you start to see some of that play out in these signs and these miracles, and the encounters are all different. And this one with the royal official's son is fascinating. He comes to Jesus because he's heard that Jesus is doing some stuff. It doesn't really know Jesus or have great faith in Jesus, but he's heard some things, and he says to Jesus, "My son's sick. I know that I hear you can do something about it." And Jesus' response, part of what I'll talk about this week is that Jesus doesn't always respond the way we might expect him to. And yet, even though his responses sometimes seem harsh to us, they're always loving. Like you in your message last week when he responds to his mom and says, "Woman,"
right.
and we go, "Oh, well, that's not
Well,
good." But it was a term.
we
He
add that
wasn't.
emphasis, woman, and that's
Yeah,
not the
yeah. But
tone that he had.
which is how culturally we read it, but it would have been
Right.
woman, and he uses the term in the resurrection and with
Yeah.
with Mary and stuff. It's not a malicious term, but we can read it that way. But sometimes he says some things that seem a little harsh, and so in leading up to what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to because we've just skipped over John chapter 3 and John chapter 4. I'm gonna or parts of John 4 to get to this story. I'm gonna talk about briefly like his encounter with Nicodemus, and you know Nicodemus is coming asking questions, and Jesus is kind of like you can't see the kingdom unless you're born again. Which he just Nicodemus goes, "What are you talking about? That uh, how can anybody be born again? We're supposed to go back into the womb. What does it look like?" And then, to clarify it, he says, "Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the spirit gives birth to spirit." You shouldn't be surprised me saying you must be born again. And I think he's got to be. And you're like, well, what's he? But Jesus knows exactly what Nicodemus needs. Nicodemus is a diehard rule follower who needs to know it's not about performance. He needs
Mm,
grace. And he can't get there on his own. No matter how good he is, he needs Jesus to do it. And then the next encounter is the Samaritan woman at the well, which is a whole fascinating story because the Jewish people and the Samaritans hated each other. And the Jewish people avoided anything to do with Samaritans. They would walk out of the way, but not Jesus. He goes straight through. It's the quickest way through. And, gets to a well and he's thirsty and asks a Samaritan woman to give him a drink. And she's like, "Why are you even talking to me? We don't even talk to each other." And he's like, "Yeah, that's not the issue." And they have some more discussions. And I love what he says. He says, because she's all alone, which points to the fact that this uh, how she's living is probably not the best. And Jesus calls her on it lightly. Go call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she replied. And Jesus said, "You're right. When you have to say you have no husband, the fact is you've had five husbands. And the man you now have is not your husband." And it's like, but she's not. I mean, he says it in a way where it's just truth, right?
Right.
And then I love what he follows it up with: "A time is coming and has now come when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they're the kind of worshipers the Father seeks." And the Samaritan woman, who's very much aware of her issues because she's an outcast in an outcast society, she's further an outcast because of the way that she's living, because she would have been at the well would have been a social time. She'd have been there with other people, but because of her
Mhm.
life choices, she's on the outside of that. And yet Jesus talks to her and treats her. And what she needs to know is that even though she's a mess, God still sees her with value. And she needs to be aware that God would love to invite her in to be a worshiper. Like she's not, there's a way back, right, for everybody.
Yeah.
And so he tends to speak to people where they are. And then that kind of sets us up with the royal official who comes to him. And it says in John 44, 46 through 48, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this guy comes because he's heard he's there and says, "My son's sick," and begs him to come. Jesus says, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you'll never believe." And it's kind of and it's kind of off, but and it's at some level, John's gospel says that these miracles are so to help people believe.
Right.
But it's got to be deeper than sort of, you can't come to Jesus like he's a genie
Yeah.
in the bottle when you need him and you just rub the bottle and then you get three wishes. And a lot of people will start to do that with Jesus. It just go when they need something, right? Instead of, it's not about, it's you want to pursue Jesus not for what he can do. I think you said this not that long ago,
But
but for
what
who he
he's
is.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
It's
just not about, right. Um, so um, so he comes and then what Jesus does really next is shocking. He says he's because the royal official pushes past that and says to Jesus again, "Please come before my child dies." And go, Jesus said, "Your son will live." And so the man goes. I mean, that's a faith statement right there. Because generally healers had to be present.
mm-hmm.
And Jesus, okay, but Jesus, we've already been introduced in the gospel that Jesus is the Word. He was the one that spoke everything. Jesus is something different, right? Someone different, and Jesus can heal with the Word. He did not have to be there, and it's a huge sign of faith that the guy goes because he's saying, okay, well, he said it, and he doesn't know that much about Jesus, but he goes, and as he's on his way back, which had to be hard, his child's dying. It's a,
Yeah. No, I couldn't imagine being that.
and
Yeah.
I've done what I can. He told me to go. I'm going, but why didn't he come? I begged him to come, and I got to go home. And on the way, he's greeted, and they say, "Hey, turned around. He's fine." And when did it happen? And it was the exact time Jesus said go.
Mm.
And then it says his faith. Jesus, he took his man. I don't know if I got it in here. If you read the next verse, boom, then he got it. Him and his whole family, and that their faith was changed into knowing Jesus, which then the I think it points to life, right? And not just for the moment, but forever. And so that's a big deal of the things that are happening. And I've got a great illustration, but I don't want to share it here. I got it. If you want to hear a really good illustration uh,
Yeah,
that
we
fits
gotta we gotta leave you on a cliffhanger for the
this, yeah,
sermon.
this fits this story. You want to watch
I have the notes, so it's good. But yeah, definitely join us for church this weekend, Saturday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday, 8, 9:30, and 11. We'd love to have you join us on the stream and chat with us, all that good stuff. Thank you all so much. Are you done, Dad? Did you have anything else you
I
wanted
was
to
going to
add?
say it's also recorded, so if they can't make a live
Yeah,
version,
yeah. They're on YouTube, all four services. We
and
don't.
they show up on the Bible Institute too, I think, under the courses.
Right, right. Well, if you wanted to say watch like me play music,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, there you
you
go.
could
We can do
find us on
that too.
YouTube and
And they
Facebook.
should. It's excellent stuff.
Oh,
We
yeah.
work very hard on having a very watchable live stream. And our friend Brain in Cameroon sits and pastors those live streams.
He does an awesome job.
He
He's
does. So
he
he's
is our online pastor at Keys
yeah.
Vineyard Church, and we're you know prepping him to be on the show here, so we
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
we,
yeah.
we gotta get him soon. Yeah,
We've
it'll
got
be
his
fun.
interconnect connection, we think, to a place where we can very soon have him
Yeah,
join us on the
yeah,
so
that's gonna be
that's
fun.
coming. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I like him. You'll like him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, again, thank you all. Keep taking your courses. Makes a big difference when you do. Like and share this podcast with anybody who might be interested. I don't know. But, keep taking your courses. Tell your friends and family about the institute, and invite them to take courses because it
Sure.
costs them nothing, and just it's great. The more you read the Bible, the better off you'll be. So do it. And with all that being said, we're signing off. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.